And by illustration, we have this as an illustration of the coastline. So you have the land and then the water. So this is open water. It could be a lake, it could be a sea, it could be an ocean. So this area, this strip of land bordering or sharing the boundary with the water is what we call the coast. But coasts are mainly used to refer to those areas bordering the oceans and seas. When you talk about the inland areas bordering lakes, in most cases we talk about the shores of the lake, shores of the river. The coast mainly refers to that area bordering the sea or the ocean. And in East Africa, we have the coastline being along the end of Kenya or at the coast of Kenya and then Tanzania. Uganda does not have a coastline because it does not border the Indian Ocean. This is another illustration of the coastline or the coast. So you have an open water body, an ocean, and then this land that is bordering the water is what we call the coast. That is the first term under coastal geomorphology. Then the second term, what we call the shore. And the shore is the area near the coast, lying between the higher and the lowest water level. So when you come to the coast, or when you look at the area bordering the water body, there are two parts of the water body. There is the lower end of the water body and the deep end of the water body. So that area lying between the lower end or the shallow end of the water body and the deep end of the water body is what we call the shore. That's why you say the ship is coming on shore. So it is getting towards the land, or the ship is going offshore. It is moving away from the land to or into the water body. So by the illustration, when you look at this diagram, you have the higher end, this side, or the deep end, and then you have the lower end. Here you can even walk into the water. So this area here is what you're calling the shore. So we say the ship or the boats anchor on the shore or on shore. So you have the ships coming and stationing or coming and stopping around here. So where the ships or boats stop along a shoreline or along the coast is what we call the shore. That is the second term under the coastal geomorphology. Then we have the beach, another term that we shall come across in our discussion of the coastal geomorphology of East Africa. And by definition, a beach is an accumulation of deposits. Those deposits can be sand, shingle along the shore. Sand, shingle along the shore. And the deposition is done by water. And once those deposits accumulate, they form an area that we call a beach. So by illustration, we have this diagram. You have the land, you have the water, and there is a lot of deposition along this area. So these deposited materials are what we're calling the beach. And we have what we call the sand beach, then the shingle beach. When we come to the description of this landform, we shall see the differences between the different types of beaches. Then another term or another terminology we shall come across the waves. And by definition, waves are oscillations oscillations refers to the rotation of the water. So these are oscillations on the surface of the water body. So the rotations or the breaks of the water body, the surface of the water body, form what we call waves. These waves move up and down to create troughs or crests. So as they are moving, either onshore or offshore, they keep on turning or moving up and down, and they form what we call troughs or crests. And these two diagrams illustrate the formation or the appearance of waves. These are gentle waves, while these are turbulent waves. Here, excuse me, here the troughs or the crests are gentle, so you can see the up and down movement of water. Then these are the rough waves, and their rotation or oscillation is fast, stronger, and they form a lot of up and down movement. That's why you see the up movement is much higher than the movement in these gentle waves. So that is the definition of the fourth terminology under coastal geomorphology, the waves. And in our discussion, we shall mainly talk about the activities which are done by the waves and the different landforms which result from the activities or the actions of the waves along the coast. Waves are caused by the following. One, they could be caused by the movement of the wind, or what we call wind duration. Wind duration refers to the period wind keeps blowing over water. So we have low duration, or we have a wind taking a shorter time blowing over the water. Then we have instances where wind duration is very high. It takes a longer time blowing over the water. So the more time the wind takes blowing against the water, the faster or the higher the velocity of the wave. So you'll have a much higher up and down movement of the surface of the water because of the duration of the wind. Two, these waves can be caused by catastrophic events. For example, an earthquake. We looked at earthquakes in the land forming processes, and we said earthquakes are violent movements of the Earth's surface or the Earth's plates, and they are caused when two plates collide against one another, so causing a sharp or a violent movement underground. And we're saying that when there are earthquakes occurring within the basin where the oceans and seas occupy, then there will be violent movement of the water, and that violent movement of the water will cause what we call waves, either gentle waves if the earthquake is gentle, or violent waves if the earthquake is violent. Then it could be as a result of movement of objects in water, possibly the ships. As they are moving, they force the water forward and backward, so they cause gentle and violent waves. It could be movement of large sea animals like the sharks, the whales. As they move in the water, they cause that oscillation of the water, which we are referring to as the waves. Then the fourth cause could be the wind velocity and fetch, meaning the distance traveled by waves on the water surface. So the more violent the wind is, the higher and violent the waves will be, the less velocity of the wind. So the force, velocity is the force and the speed at which wind moves. So the higher the velocity, the more violent the waves will be. The lower the velocity, the less violent the waves will be. And we have illustrations of an illustration. So this is a wave, or these are waves caused by wind movement, wind duration, wind velocity. Then we have another illustration of a wave which is caused by occurrence of an earthquake. And you see that these two, the earthquake caused waves are much higher and more violent than the wind caused waves. These are a little gentle and lower. These are violent and higher because they are caused by the earthquakes. Then the waves are of two types. There are two types of waves that we observe along the coast. The first type of waves are the destructive waves, or what we call storms. Destructive, it means these waves are violent and they cause a lot of havoc or harm along the coast, either destroying the landscape of the coast or the human activities and features, man-made features that are found along the coast. So these